What's up, everyone? Evan Jones with you here on the RPAC Rundown podcast. If you're watching the episode, you'll see some different backgrounds, maybe some costume changes from me, as we are at state wrestling this week, and I'm working on all kinds of different content. This week on the podcast, we will recap the featured matchups we had on February 11th, 13th, and 14th. Also, we will visit with Lauren Moore of Arapahoe. You may have seen on our social media sites that Lauren was the Class B Girls State Singles Champion in bowling. What an awesome accomplishment for Lauren. Finally, we'll have Athletes of the Week brought to you by First Central Bank at the end of the show. As always, check us out on social media and at rpacrundown.com. Of course, the RPAC Rundown podcast is brought to you by a bunch of great sponsors like Arapahoe Rehab and Fitness, Cambridge Supermarket, Webb's Oilfield Service, Cambridge Rehab and Fitness, Onyx Native, and C+. We'll take a short break and be right back. On Tuesday, February 11th, it was chilly, not quite as chilly as it has been this week, and the snow fell, but the action in the gym at Cambridge was on fire as the Trojans played host to rival Arapahoe for a girls and boys doubleheader. Neither game was disappointing, as they both went down to the wire for the most part. Cambridge, though, was able to sweep the games. Back on January 24th, Cambridge and Arapahoe played in the first round of the girls' RPAC tournament. The Warriors won that one 52-30, but this time around, Cambridge got the narrow victory 47-42. For Arapahoe, Cadence Carpenter had 13 points, Sawyer Schaefer had 11, Sutton Schaefer had 7, and Clara Hilker scored 5. For Cambridge, Mallory Springer and Aspen Webb each had 12, and Elizabeth Kubik and Brooklyn Holtz had 9. Chloe Gooden had 4. In the boys' game, we had a great game until the end, but Cambridge came out on top 52-42. Arapahoe was led by Alex Diaz and Will Casey with 9 points. Eli Schaefer had 8, and Grayson Kohler had 7. For Cambridge, Brady Allmeyer had 23, Hodge Rayburn scored 16, and Creighton Ruggles had 9. Maverick Webb didn't score, but he had a big impact on the game with some defensive and big-time hustle plays too. This RPAC Rundown featured matchup was brought to you by Webb's Oilfield Service, Amateurs, Arapahoe Rehab and Fitness, Hometown Agency, Onyx Native, C+, FNIC Trusted Insurance Advisors, Aaron Long and Bertrand, Red Roof Farms, Cambridge Rehab and Fitness, and JBK Operating, LLC. We'll take a break and then discuss our Thursday night games between Sutherland and Paxton. Paxton made the short trip to Sutherland on Thursday, February 13th for a matchup with the Sailors on the basketball court. It was senior night for the Sailors, so there was a nice crowd on hand. Paxton was able to secure wins in both games. In the girls' game, it was Paxton who used their pressure defense to get runouts and easy buckets and win in convincing fashion 44-12. Jordan Klaus led Paxton with 11 points, Ella Foti had 10, and Emily Nicholson had 9. Mihaela Vasquez led Sutherland with 8 points, and Malia Vasquez scored 3. In the boys' game, Paxton won big, 70-28. Jasper Brewster led the scoring for Paxton with 20 points. Maddox McConnell and Tanner Hebblethwaite each had 12 points. For Sutherland, Zane Green had 8 points, Isaac Sinsel had 8 also, and Jackson Sainer scored 7. This RPAC Rundown featured matchup was brought to you by Goodberry Farms, Hardin Insurance Agency, Whitetail Farms, and FNIC Trusted Insurance Advisors, Aaron Long and Bertrand. We'll take a break and then discuss Friday night's games between Bertrand and Arapahoe. On Friday, February 14th, we were in Bertrand for a matchup between the Arapahoe Warriors and the Bertrand Vikings. In the girls' game, Arapahoe was able to win 44-29. For Bertrand, Brooklyn Evans had 15 points, Addie Anderson had 6. For Arapahoe, Clara Hilker and Sutton Schaefer had 8, Sawyer Schaefer had 7, and Sage Larson had 6. In the boys' game, it was Bertrand who snagged the victory, with the final tally being 70-43. For Arapahoe, Will Casey had 18 points and Grayson Kohler had 9. Thunder Nelson led Bertrand with 26 points. Marcus Hernandez had 17. Hunter Nelson had 12, and Caden Hatfield had 11. This RPAC Rundown featured matchup was brought to you by FNIC Trusted Insurance Advisors, Aaron Long and Bertrand, First State Bank, C+, and Arapahoe Rehab and Fitness. We'll take a break, and then we will visit with Lauren Moore of Arapahoe, as she is the Class B singles state champ in bowling. You're listening to the RPAC Rundown podcast. Okay, Lauren, let's just start with the initial reaction when you realized you would be a state champion. What were those feelings like for you?
It was a lot of just like a fever dream. I didn't know I was going to be the state champion until like down to the last minute. I focused on one frame at a time, but it was definitely, I was really happy. As soon as I won, I went to my family, hugged, and my mom started crying, and then I started crying, and it was happy tears though. So.
That's awesome. Now, during competition down at state, you've made it multiple times. Were there any nerves this year, or what's that like for you competing down at state?
There was a lot of nerves. Going into this year, I knew anything could happen because last year I didn't medal, but I was definitely nervous, but I knew if I just took it one frame at a time, I'd be fine.
Now, as you mentioned, you're a junior. You've made it all 3 years. You medaled as a freshman. You got 5th last year. You just missed out. Was there any more pressure with being there year after year and also not medaling last year to have a good time at state this year?
I think that there was more pressure this year because, of course, I knew anything could happen. Freshman year, I got 5th, which was good. And then last year, I missed out by 13 pins. So I definitely felt more pressure going into this year, knowing that I really wanted to medal. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Now, your mom, you mentioned you got to share tears of joy with her. She's your coach. What's it like having her as a coach?
I think it's definitely an advantage to some point because she's there cheering me on as a coach, just like any other coach should to their team. But also she was there cheering me on as a mom too. So there was lots of support behind her through the coach and the mom eyes.
Oh, that's awesome that you get to experience that with your mom as a coach. That's pretty cool. Now, you compete throughout the year too. How does that help you stay ready and improve at all times, Lauren?
Yes, so I'm part of the Nebraska Youth Bowling Partnership Tour. It's up in Lincoln and Omaha mostly. There's lots of Class A and Class B schools mostly that compete in that. And so I'm a tiny little Class D school. So it's definitely good competition up there. Lots of high scores, lots of tough competitors. So it really gets me prepared for the oncoming season and all the tournaments that I go to in state as well.
Let's go back to the beginning of the year, okay? Was this an expectation to maybe finish, as a state champion? Was it a goal, or what were some of your goals to begin the year, Lauren?
I would not say that it was an expectation. I do hold a lot of expectations on myself of just doing the best that I can do. But going into state this year after districts, I wouldn't say it was my main goal. My main goal was just I want to get through seeding round and I want to medal. That was my goal. But whenever you have goals, you have to, once you achieve them, you just have to make another goal. So once I got into quarterfinals, I was like, okay, I met my goal of medaling. So now my goal is to get past quarterfinals. And then once I did that, my goal is to get past semifinals. And eventually my goal was to win eventually.
No, that's a great way to approach it. Never get too far ahead of yourself, for sure. That's a great way. Obviously, you're enjoying this right now. It's awesome you're a state champ. Have you thought about repeating next year? I hate to ask that question, but is it something you thought about for next year?
Yes, I have. I thought it'd always be really cool to do a two-peat individually state champion. That would always be amazing, but you can never think too far ahead. So right now I'm just focusing on the tournaments right now. And then I have nationals coming up in July in Wisconsin. So
awesome. Very cool. Now, we've talked a lot about the individual side, but it's a team sport. And I know you enjoy the team aspect of it too. This year, how much fun did you have, as a team and competing together with your teammates?
It's really fun competing with my team. They're always there supporting me, and I'm always there cheering them on at all the tournaments and meets that we go to. So it's always fun. They always bring a lot of life to the bowling atmosphere. Lots of cheers, lots of smiles and everything. We're always cheering each other on, clapping, whatever. So it's always really fun competing with them.
Awesome. Hey, thanks a bunch for the time, Lauren. And again, congrats.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the RPAC Rundown podcast. It's time to announce the RPAC Rundown Athletes of the Week, brought to you by First Central Bank. Let's plan for tomorrow together. First Central Bank, member FDIC. Our female athlete of the week goes to Lauren Moore of Arapahoe. Of course, we visited with her on the podcast. She was the Class B state singles champion in bowling. What a great accomplishment for Lauren. Our male athlete of the week goes to Lane Bybee of Dundee County Stratton. Lane had 38 points, 9 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks in their 80-49 win over Southern Valley last week. The Athlete of the Week awards are brought to you by First Central Bank, member FDIC. That'll do it for this week's episode of the podcast. Of course, the podcast is brought to you by a number of great sponsors like JBK Operating, LLC, Scouts Recreation, First Central Bank, Cross Diamond Cattle Company, Tri-Valley Medical Foundation, and Prairie Girl Candle Company. Thanks a bunch for tuning in. We will have a recap of state wrestling next week, so stay tuned.